You are now listening to Just Another Year Chicago with your host, Nick Rohde. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this Wednesday's episode of Just Another Year Chicago. I'm Nick Rohde, and today we have a lot to go over in Chicago sports since last Sunday's episode. Starting with the Chicago Bears and their recent victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars, followed by their upcoming matchup against the Green Bay Packers, my three keys to the game, and What If Wednesday, which is themed around the Chicago Bears. After that, we'll be discussing the Chicago Bulls and what needs to happen for them to stay on track after the recent victory over the Washington Wizards, all wrapped up by the latest news on the Chicago Cubs and the Chicago Blackhawks. Before we get started, please remember to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all of my content, followed by liking and commenting on this video because I want to interact with you guys. I love interacting with you guys. Last episode was a lot of fun, so let's keep the ball rolling on that. And to make sure to follow me on Twitter, @ChicagoNick, to talk sports, and yes, I do follow back. So let's get things kicked off. The Chicago Bears defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars 41-17 in their fourth straight game of scoring 30 points or more. The first time since 1965, but it has also brought their winning streak to 3 games, and they are currently 7th in the NFC wildcard picture, in the NFC Playoff picture, which is the final wildcard spot. I think that the Bears have done a great job in getting themselves back into position for this because, again, after that Detroit Lions loss, where they lost in the final 2 minutes of the game, the Bears had to make the decision if they're going to tank this year and get a good first-round pick, or they're going to make a playoff push because they did have an easy schedule. The Bears did have one of the easiest second-half schedules in the NFL this past year, which the recent 3-game winning streak have been all against teams who have been eliminated from the playoffs. One, the Bears actually eliminated themselves in the Minnesota Vikings, and there's a lot of hope for this team as the offense has come to life. Like stated before, they have scored 30-plus points in 4 straight games, the first time since 1965, which is huge for this young and growing Chicago Bears team. I think that the Bears played great in this Jacksonville game, minus the first quarter and the first 7 minutes of the second quarter. Besides that, the Bears played absolutely fantastic. It was 10-10 entering the second quarter, something that the Bears should not have been even close to against a 1-13 at the time Jacksonville Jaguars team, who is tanking for the first overall pick, hopefully getting quarterback Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson. But overall, the Bears should have never been that close. But they turned it on. The offense came to life. The offense really never was dead, let's say, but the defense was not playing up to their standards as this Chicago Bears defense is put at, considering on paper they have one of the most talented units in the NFL. So I felt that the Bears did a great job on offense overall. Bill Lazor has unlocked Mitch Trubisky and this entire offense. This new offensive line has done a fantastic job at making opportunities for Mitch, opportunities for David Montgomery, because if you have a good run game, you have a good pass game. That means your wide receivers are going to do well, and overall, a defense is confused and not sure what you're going to run next. The Chicago Bears have figured that out so far, and sure, it happened against subpar teams, but you need reps, you need practice, and also the confidence of winning a game, and that's what the Chicago Bears did this past weekend. So, great overall team win. The one thing that needs to happen is Chuck Pagano needs to continue to be aggressive with this defense. That's what he did in the second half. Even though the Bears only had 1 sack this past Sunday, they were aggressive. They were making plays. There was a lot of throwaway balls from Mike Glennon because he was under pressure the entire game. So, Chuck Pagano needs to enter the Green Bay game with the same intensity and same with the offense. Now, moving into the game this upcoming weekend, the 8-7 Chicago Bears, who are riding a 3-game winning streak, are playing the 12-3 Green Bay Packers. This team has already met this year, right after the Bears bye, which they lost in a very lopsided game, but that was the first game back for Mitch Trubisky. It was the first game back after a bye week, and the Bears were still looking for that offensive identity, which they have found. The Bears did score points in garbage time, but the last time these teams met were 2 completely different teams. Now they are similar because the Packers have a high-power offense. They have a strong defense. The Chicago Bears also have a high-power offense now, as they've shown in the last 4 weeks, and they do have a strong defense that we do know as long as the play calling is right. So this game coming up, the 8-7 Chicago Bears against the 12-3 Green Bay Packers. This is a playoff game for both teams to a degree. The Packers are already in the playoffs, but what people need to realize that the Packers want that number 1 seed because this year you get a bye if you are the number 1 seed. And what I mean by a bye is that the first round of the playoffs, they don't play. So players that are hurt, players that need rest are going to get that much needed help in order to be prepared for the rest of the playoffs. And the Packers are a dangerous team. They're one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. You have an MVP candidate in Aaron Rodgers. You have a great wide receiver in Devontae Adams. You have a strong running back in Aaron Jones. You have one of the best offensive lines in football and a defense that has shocked a lot of people this year. Sure, it hasn't been the greatest against the run, but they have prevented teams from scoring on them. So I think that, and then obviously the Chicago Bears, they literally need to win this game to make the playoffs on their own. If the Bears win, they are in the playoffs. If the Bears lose, kind of was getting to this later, but we'll just hit on it now. If the Bears lose, they need the LA Rams to defeat the Arizona Cardinals so that the Bears can lock in that final spot. Let's say that the Bears and the Cardinals both win. They both still make the playoffs. The Cardinals would be the 6th seed. The Bears would be the 7th seed. So this is a very, very exciting game at Soldier Field this upcoming weekend because both teams are playing for something in the playoffs, whether that be the playoffs or that bye week. It's going to be very, very interesting. Now, here's where things get hard for the Chicago Bears. Since the Green Bay Packers are walking into this game without the number 1 seed, they are going to be playing, the Chicago Bears are going to be playing against Green Bay starters. That is a very, very scary thing considering, like I said earlier, a lot of talent on the offensive side of the football, a getting better and better defense every week. The Chicago Bears are going to have to come with their absolute A game this upcoming weekend, and that is much needed. That has been the theme this whole year, that the Bears are always fighting. Are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to make the playoffs? And this is the first playoff game for the Chicago Bears in order to get into the playoffs. So really exciting about that. So exciting that the NFL actually flexed the Bears game. That means that they moved it to a better time slot so they'd have more of a national audience. Because the Bears, this is the most exciting game of the weekend besides the Arizona Cardinals and the LA Rams. A lot of teams in Week 17 that are already in the playoffs or are not going to make the playoffs are sitting their starters. So the Bears obviously are going to be at full caliber in their starters. The Packers are also going to be the LA Rams and the Cardinals. So stay tuned for both those games. Very, very exciting. I would rather the game be at noon. I just want to watch this game. This is the most exciting, a lot of people are saying, since the 2010 NFC Championship against the Green Bay Packers that the Bears played. And which the Packers ended up winning due to a very questionable injury by Jay Cutler, which I love Jay Cutler, my favorite Bears quarterback of all time. Second on the list, Mitchell Trubisky. Third on the list, Kyle Orton. We can go to that another time. But overall, I think that this is the most exciting game. The Bears were in the playoffs back in 2018, which, great. That was awesome. The famous double toink against the Philadelphia Eagles. It's been a very rough go for Bears fans. And this is a team that can go far in the postseason now that they do have an offense that's clicking, and this game is a true test for everyone. So if the Bears were to make the playoffs, which they have a very high opportunity to because Arizona Cardinals are struggling, the Rams have a great defense, and also even though Jared Goff will not be playing this upcoming weekend due to a broken thumb, the Rams still have a pretty aggressive offense that can make points on the board even without Jared Goff, who Jared Goff is at best an average NFL quarterback. Kind of like what the Bears have with Mitch Trubisky, but their defense carries that team. So if the Bears are to make the playoffs as the 7th seed, they will play the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans, who the Bears played earlier this year. And a lot of people don't remember that the Bears almost won that game. That was one of the games during the 6-game losing streak that the Bears should have won. They lost in overtime 26-23. And the Saints were playing with all their starters. They shut down Alvin Kamara. Drew Brees was playing. Michael Thomas was not playing that game, but Michael Thomas was not the Michael Thomas that he usually is this year due to injuries and off-field issues. So if the Bears get in, they play the New Orleans Saints. But we need to look on to Green Bay for now, which is going to lead me into my three keys to beating the Green Bay Packers. Number one, you need to keep feeding the ball to David Montgomery. David Montgomery is now the number 5 running back in the NFL with 1,001 rushing yards. His first 1,000-yard rushing season. Congrats to David Montgomery. Well-deserved considering he missed a game this year due to concussion protocol, and he came back from that game an absolute freak athlete. And a lot of Bears fans need to remember that he actually almost had a season-ending injury when he tweaked his groin in practice. But when you watch the video, it looks like he did more than tweak his groin. So shout out to David Montgomery for just absolutely stepping up to the plate, stepping up to the field, I guess. But he has done a fantastic job for the Chicago Bears in this second half of the season, bringing this offense to life. You have a good run game, you're going to have a good pass game, vice versa. So very proud of David Montgomery. And also over the last 5 weeks, a lot of people don't know this, he's the number 2 running back in total rushing yards and total rushing touchdowns. So watch out for David Montgomery. He did have a 56-yard run against the Green Bay Packers in that opening game on the opening offensive drive for the Bears. So stay tuned for that. Feed Montgomery the ball and good things will happen. Second, the defense needs to play like it did in the first 6 games of the season when the Bears were 5-1. The defense is built to create pressure on a quarterback. Robert Quinn, Bilal Nichols, Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack, Mingo, Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan. This deep, and just imagine if we had Eddie Goldman, Bears nose tackle, who has been one of the best nose tackles in the NFL. If the Bears can create pressure on Aaron Rodgers, who he's going to be stressed out, I don't want to get hurt for the playoffs. We're already in. I cannot take the chance of being hurt. He's going to throw a lot of balls out of bounds because he would rather throw away a ball than get a sack and potentially hurt himself and then have that haunt him the rest of the playoffs or not come out from the playoffs. So Green Bay does have one of the best offensive lines, though, but the Bears have proven against an always good Green Bay offensive line that they can get to the quarterback, they can make pressure, and that is something that they need to do, and Chuck Pagano also needs to do, and be a ball hawk. Eddie Jackson has picked off Aaron Rodgers twice in his career. Aaron Rodgers does not throw many interceptions. If you can do, and also Kyle Fuller, who actually almost picked off the Green Bay Packers in 2018 in Week 1, that would have sealed the deal for the Chicago Bears to win that Week 1 game. The Bears corners know Aaron Rodgers. They can get after the ball. Chuck Pagano needs to play this defense like Vic Fangio did in 2018, and I think that it's going to do everything that it needs to do in order to beat the Green Bay Packers. And finally, going into Chuck Pagano, but also Bill Lazor, is that they need to bring every single trick in the book in order to win this game. The Green Bay Packers know the Chicago Bears. They know what they're made of. They know how they like to play. And yes, this is a different team from the last time they played. And yes, this is a different team than the last couple seasons of Matt Nagy being the play caller. But Green Bay does know this team. They know how we work. And they need something different thrown at them to throw them off. Because the second the Packers lose any confidence, they look around like lost puppies. And that's something that Aaron Rodgers, if he gets frustrated, it affects the rest of his game. So the Bears need to have their coaching staff bring in the absolute best to this team, to this game. And they are not going to go, the Packers are not going to go into this easy. They're going to go into this hard because they want that number 1 spot. The Bears are also going to be fighting for the playoff spot. I think that this is going to be a very, very exciting Chicago Bears game this upcoming weekend. So stay tuned for that. And Matt Nagy, if you were to ever have this video come across your desk, great job at focusing on the team having less penalties. That is something that also had killed the Bears during that 6-game losing streak, was a lot of penalties. Now that Matt Nagy has given up his play calling, he has been much, 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 much more focused on the little details. The offensive line, the new offensive line that's working, he's able to evaluate talent and put them there. Even though that should be the offensive line coach's job, Matt Nagy has just much of a say. There has been less penalties on the offensive line, and that has been great. He's also able to talk to Bill Lazor and Chuck Pagano and make sure that they are calling plays that he likes. I'm sure that Matt Nagy is definitely in Bill Lazor's ear more because that's Matt Nagy's niche, is the offensive play calling. But Bill Lazor is doing a great job, and if Matt Nagy is able to focus on the little details more and help influence Bill Lazor, he's doing a great job. So, Coach, keep this up, and let's make it to the playoffs. Quick side note is that Matt Nagy is confirmed to be the Bears head coach next year, no matter the outcome of this upcoming weekend's game. And if Matt Nagy were to lose, let's say, but still make the playoffs, Matt Nagy has never had below a 500 season as the Bears head coach. So it could have been in a way better position this year if he would have, manned up and given up the play calling earlier, and a new offensive line. There's a lot of different things. Or not benching Mitchell Trubisky, the obvious one. There's a lot of things that could have been different, but we cannot live in the past as Bears fans. We need to move forward and understand that Matt Nagy, now that he has the ability to read the details, is doing a lot better as a head coach. And a lot of people don't know this, but Matt Nagy was the guy that took play calling from Andy Reid. When Andy Reid was doing play calling in Kansas City was doing okay, and Matt Nagy was able to unlock that beast because he was only focused on play calling on the offense. I think what happened was the same thing with Andy Reid to Matt Nagy when he came to Chicago. He took too much on his plate. And for anybody, that's just too much. So I think that Matt Nagy, you've done a great job of putting your ego aside. You're doing a great job with the media. You're doing a great job admitting to your mistakes. Let's move forward and keep going. Guarantee you, if we lose on some weird call that you challenge the wrong player or something like that this upcoming weekend, yes, Bears fans are going to be coming at your throat. But Matt Nagy is one of the best head coaches for the Chicago Bears since Lovie Smith. And that's with Mark Trutzman and John Fox in between. So let's see how I'm very excited for this upcoming weekend's game. Shout out to everybody on there. Those are my 3 key games, 3 keys to beating Green Bay, but also Matt Nagy, just wanted to give you a shout out as well. So some score predictions from myself. The Chicago Bears are going to win this game 28-24 behind a very, very strong day from David Montgomery and Mitchell Trubisky moving around in the pocket and making plays for himself. Passing against this defense is very difficult, but I think that the Bears are going to come out with a win. I hope they come out with a win because they're going to be playing their hearts out the whole game. So going to be close. The Bears are playing for their playoff lives, and if Green Bay loses, they're still in. So with that, let's move into What If Wednesday. This week's What If Wednesday actually goes back to, I was talking about it a little bit earlier, but the 2010 NFC Championship game that was at Soldier Field. If Jay Cutler, the Bears starting quarterback that year, did not get hurt, would the Bears have won the Super Bowl, or would they have still lost that NFC Championship game? I think that the Bears would have made it to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl that year. That's not being biased, but the Green Bay Packers, who that whole season, it was great matchups all the way through until Jay Cutler got hurt in the NFC Championship, played just as tough as the Packers, and the Packers won the Super Bowl that year. I think that the Chicago Bears would have defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers and would have been Super Bowl champions. But also, I think it would have changed the whole direction of this franchise for the last decade. It would have shown that Lovie Smith is a legitimate head coach, leading the Bears to 2 Super Bowls within 4 years of each other, which is impressive at any standard, no matter how good of a coach you are. It also would have given confidence in Jay Cutler. The front office would have been like, okay, let's keep building this team. Let's keep building this solid team. And the thing is that the Bears were questionable that whole year. They had an aging defense. They had an okay offensive line. The running back situation with Matt Forte was questionable. I mean, Matt Forte, I love Matt Forte. He was great. No one knew he was the superstar that he was back in 2010. So I think that it would have released the pieces that the Bears are a winner, and they would have played with more confidence moving forward this past decade instead of having a very long drought without a playoff appearance. So, and more support from the fans. So, What If Wednesday? I think that the Bears, if they had Jay Cutler, would have not only won the NFC Championship in 2010, but also won the Super Bowl. So please leave your comments below. I want to hear you guys talk about it, or tweet me. I don't care. But let's hear your thoughts on What If Wednesday. Moving on from What If Wednesday is into the Chicago Bulls, the other current active Chicago professional team that's playing right now. Rough loss on Sunday to the Golden State Warriors, but I want to bring something up. That Levine had 33 points. Wendell Carter, Lauri Markkanen, and Kobe White also had more than 20 points. So you had almost all your starters with 20-plus points. Patrick Williams, unfortunately, did not have the greatest game. It was his worst game of the season, only scoring 6 points. But it was a great game. They fought back hard to get back into it because with 5 minutes left, the Bulls were down by 20. They were down by 20, and they lost on a 3 at the last second, which the NBA announced that they did miss a call on the inbound that it was longer than 5 seconds. And also, there was an offensive foul on Golden State for an illegal screen. The Bulls should have won that game, and the Bulls would be 2-2 right now. But they went competitive against a good, not great, a good Golden State Warriors team with a guy like Steph Curry on the other side of the court. I feel that the league should do something about reversing this. I mean, that can totally change the direction of a season, even though it's early. The Bulls could have been 1-2, now 2-2 with their recent win over the Washington Wizards, which I'll be getting to in a minute. But huge missed calls. There has been a lot of huge missed calls. I know that it's COVID basketball. I know that these refs are rusty. I know the players are rusty. But you can't miss a call like that could potentially put a team in a completely different position. Golden State had momentum now, and the Bulls felt like they were just, all the air was sucked out of them. So overall, I still think it was a great game. This team is gelling together considering they made it competitive. They fought back. They're kind of like the baby Bulls back in the late 2000s. The OG baby Bulls ended up having a lot of talented glue guys, let's say. Joakim Noah was not someone you built a franchise around. Kirk Heinrich was not a guy you built a franchise around. Ben Gordon, Luol Deng, Taj Gibson were not guys you built franchises around. But they had they were all really, really good glue players. And that's why the Bulls were very good back from 2010 to 2013. They were constantly competitive because they had a lot of glue, and they had one superstar in Derrick Rose who unfortunately was hurt. And sure, Carlos Boozer, you can say, was a good pickup. He was not a superstar by any means, but he got the job done for the Bulls. And we didn't have Jimmy Butler back then. We didn't have Pau Gasol. So this team kind of feels the same way. Like Lauri Markkanen is a good glue guy. You don't build a franchise around him. Kobe White, in my opinion, is the only guy on this Bulls roster you build a franchise around. Zach LaVine, I think you could, but he's not in that. He's a seasoned guy now. I mean, he's been in the league for 5 years. You don't think of a guy who's been in the league for 5 years, you build a franchise around them as in a rebuilding stage as the Chicago Bulls, let's say. If you're one piece away, you go out and get that superstar. That would be Zach LaVine. You're one piece away, that would be him. But the Bulls are just so young, and they're building, and they're training each other. They need that superstar status, and Zach LaVine could be it for the Bulls. We don't know yet, though, because he's been there for the bad years, so we automatically go to the blame of, oh, he should have brought us to success earlier. But Zach LaVine had a horrible head coach in Jim Boylan. Sure, Jim Boylan was a good assistant coach under Greg Popovich, but he was not a good head coach. He did not gel well with his players, especially his superstars like Zach LaVine. The only person he really got along with was Lauri Markkanen when he went to Sweden and swam in a lake with a mountain in the background. Jim Boylan tried. He did what he could, but he lost the locker room very early on. But overall, this team is gelling together. But with that, the Bulls beat the Washington Wizards last night 115-107 behind a total team effort. I mean, they looked like a complete unit. And yes, it was against a Washington Wizards team that is 0-4 now. They're struggling with offense, even with guys like Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, who have both been all-stars. Russell Westbrook was an MVP. Just super weird time in Washington. You have talent there, but who else is behind it? Washington's now 0-4, but a win is a win for the Bulls. Again, like I said earlier, the Bulls should be 2-2 after that Golden State Warriors game where the refs blew a lot of calls. But a win can spark this team. The Bulls do play tomorrow night against the Washington Wizards again, which I think is going to be a great game. I hope the Bulls come out and win it. But let's get back to this current game really fast. Is that Zach LaVine looked great. Wendell Carter Jr. looked awesome with a double-double. Good shooting performance overall. And then Lauri Markkanen also had a really great game. He was fighting in the paint. He was taking good shots. The team overall looked super smooth, super clear. Very, very exciting time to see, okay, this is what it could be. Can you do this against more teams like the Golden State Warriors? Which they did, but, you know, people are going to look at that loss and be like, you lost a game at the end of the day still. So, overall, the Bulls take on the Washington Wizards tomorrow night in Washington again, so another away game. The Bulls need to win this game so they can show that they can beat bad teams, and they lose to teams that are better than them, just straight up. The Atlanta Hawks are undefeated, and the Bulls played them in the first 2 games of the season. And the Warriors team, who are a good team, they still have a lot of talent. The Bulls are keeping it competitive in games against good teams, and they're beating the teams that they should. So if they beat the Wizards, it's showing that they're beating teams that they should. My score prediction for tonight is 108-101, another 7-point difference like this past game. I'm sorry, a 7-point difference like this past. Last game was an 8-point difference. This game, a 7-point difference. I think it's going to be very similar. But I want to see a big night from Kobe White. I just put a post out earlier saying that he needs to take more control of the offense. I love Kobe White. I am the biggest Kobe White fan that there is. I was ecstatic when we drafted him. I think he's been a great pickup so far. But, you know, he is point guard 1. He needs to get more in that groove of, okay, like, this is my team. I need to control it. I want to see a big night from Kobe White. So shout out to Kobe White. Best of luck to you tonight. Let's get the dub tomorrow night and end 2020, the crazy year that it's been, on a win. So moving on from that, big week from the Chicago Cubs. Yu Darvish has been traded to the San Diego Padres for I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but they got a starting pitcher and then 4 prospects, all of which are ranked top 10 or top 10 to 20. So sure, the Cubs did not get a top 10 prospect, but you have to look at this deal as a whole. I did not like it at first. I even tweeted about it. I was like, I hate this trade. Why would you get rid of a guy who came second in the NL Cy Young? But then you start looking more into the details. The Cubs were 1 win away from competing again for a World Series title. Trading Yu Darvish takes them 2 steps back. But they got rid of a guy on the wrong side of 30 with a massive contract, with another 4 years left on his contract, and really had a rough start to his career with the Cubs. He was injured his first year. His second year, he was still finding his way in the NL, even though he just played for the Dodgers. And this past year, Yu Darvish is an extremely talented player. Don't get me wrong. But he has openly admitted that he is not good at taking criticism from the media and the fans. And what happened with the COVID season this year? There was no fans. There was no one that could yell at him and get in his head while he's on the mound. There's no one that could ask him really tough questions after a game. So Yu Darvish was in Yu Darvish league land. Whatever you want to call that, but Yu Darvish was in his perfect league this year. So who knows? And when he goes to a different team, he has a rough first year. So who knows what he could? He could be great on the Padres, but he also could not be great on the Padres. He's an older guy. We got a lot of young talent out of it. The Cubs also don't have a strong farm system like they used to, so this is a great opportunity to start building that farm system again. So way more to come on that. But overall, I like the deal now. I did not like it at first, like every Cubs fan, but I like the deal now. Clears a boatload of cap as well. And the Cubs have a couple guys they need to pay this year if they want to continue to be a competitor. So Jed Hoyer, I will take off the gas pedal in regards to criticizing you. Keep doing what you're doing. You know way more than me. Just keep doing with that. But with that, the Padres are just stupid good now. They have arguably they have the best rotation in baseball now. They have a really young core. They're kind of like the Dodgers of a couple years ago. So the California teams are doing these rebuilds right, because I think that the Padres are going to be good for at least another 4 to 5 years. Even when Darvish is in his later years, they still have a young starting pitching staff. They could still go out and get someone, but man, they are locked up with this money for now. This is going to be the Padres team for a while, and if they were to trade anyone, they're clearing house. So the Padres have a lot of pressure on themselves to do well, considering what they have on paper. But on paper, the Padres are just stupid good. With that, Jed Hoyer is doing the right thing and making this team his. The team prior was him and Theo's. This is his team. Jed wants this team his way and is doing it from the things that he learned from Theo Epstein, but also from what other teams have done. He has cleared a boatload of cap with the Yu Darvish trade. We get great prospects in the long run, but also Cubs fans, take a step back. Before the last 6 years, the Cubs were, 2007, 2008, they won the division. Awesome. I'm very proud of it, but they got swept in both those series, the first round series. Over the last 6 years, the Cubs have made the playoffs 5 times. 3 National League Central titles, 1 MVP in Chris Bryant, 2 pennant appearances, and the ultimate goal was a World Series ring, and that's what we wanted as Cubs fans. We cannot take that for granted. The Cubs did what we asked, what needed to get done for the Cubs franchise, and that's what happened. So shout out to the Chicago Cubs. I think that they're getting way too much criticism because they set an expectation now that we're going to be good all the time. But this is the best Cubs run they've had in my lifetime and a lot of people's lifetime. So, shout out to the Cubs organization, the Ricketts, Jed Hoyer. Keep doing what you're doing to put this team in the best position. In a couple of years, I could be saying, I said that they were doing the right thing. They might not be doing the right thing. But let the professionals do their job. I still think that the Cubs have a pretty decent amount of players with Wilson Contreras, Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez, Jason Hayward. They have, Kyle Hendricks, Alec Mills. The Cubs have talent there, so don't count them out yet. Speaking of Wilson Contreras, there has been rumors going around that he has been actively shopped. Jed Hoyer earlier this morning shot that comment down. Wilson Contreras is not getting shopped. He is staying in the Cubs as of right now. So Cubs fans, take a breather, enjoy it. Finally, I just want to move into the Chicago Blackhawks real fast. As we know, their season starts on January 13th against the Tampa Bay Lightning in Tampa. But big news has come out this past week, not only for the Blackhawks, but for the NHL, is that Jonathan Toews is out indefinitely. The Blackhawks announced on Tuesday that Jonathan Toews will not be at training camp and is out indefinitely due to an undisclosed medical condition. They want to keep it private. Doctors are still studying his condition. So it could be something very serious that obviously you want nothing to happen, especially to a guy like Jonathan Toews, who has won multiple awards, has been our rock when we won 3 Stanley Cups in 5 years. Very scary time for Blackhawks fans, hockey fans. But Toews is as tough as it gets, and we all should be praying. Keep him in your thoughts and prayers for a speedy recovery. And whatever decision he makes on his career, it's him as a person. He is a person just like the rest of us. And sure, he's a professional athlete, but he needs to do what's best for himself and his family. And Jonathan Toews is the guy that back when I was in high school, like you watch the Hawks, you think of Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane. So it could get really emotional to see his career end that way. I would love to see Toews win one more Stanley Cup and Kane win one more Stanley Cup as a duo. So more to come on that, but again, keep him in your thoughts and prayers for a speedy recovery. And with that, I told you it was going to be a jam-packed episode with a lot of information. So that is a wrap for this Wednesday's episode of Just Another Year Chicago. Stay tuned for this Sunday's episode following the Bears' Week 17 game against the guys up north. Hopefully some good news. Also be monitoring the Rams and Cardinals game. So stay tuned for that. We'll have more on the Chicago Bulls as they are playing the Washington Wizards tomorrow night. And they do have a game, I believe, on the 2nd. I don't have the schedule in front of me, and I apologize for that. But more to come on the Chicago Bulls. Hopefully they do make it above 500 or break even at 500 coming up. How the Blackhawks are going to continue to prepare without Jonathan Toews for the 2021 season that starts on January 13th. And what else is going to go on with the Chicago Cubs and the Chicago White Sox. This is the weirdest MLB offseason. Randomly, things will just start happening. So with that, once again, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Comment, like this. Tweet me, I don't care. Tweet me at Chicago Nick without a K. And let's talk sports. But seriously, thank you all again for staying tuned. It's been great getting to know all of you so far. Thanks again, and bear down.